I would like to tell a little bit about my book. First, I should mention that Martinus is a Danish author. He lived from 1890 and died in 1981. And he's very little known in the world, but he has created a new cosmology called Martinus cosmology. And it is the theory of everything that exists. And Darwin is a very famous scientist. He published his book, The Origin of Species, in 1859. And then, especially in the United States, there came a new theory called the Intelligent Design theory. I think it appeared around 88, 89, 90. And in the United States, there were some people who would like that there was an alternative to Darwin's teaching. He has made this evolutionary theory where evolution takes place gradually in small steps. And first, it went to the Supreme Court in the United States, and they did not allow that they taught the biblical account about how God has created man and the different species. It was not science, and they could not teach that in school. Then they made a scientific theory. And then they wanted to have another hypothesis, another theory in the biological classes. And the purpose of the intelligent design theory is to show that Darwin is wrong. And Darwin published his book in 1859. And it was a bestseller. And all the scientists were very fond of Darwin's book, but the church was very much against it. And it seems as if this discussion has gone on for 150 years, and they are still discussing it very much. And it's very strange, how can they have such a discussion? And personally, I think it is because there is some truth in both theories. They have a fragment of the eternal truth. But Martinus, he's a Danish philosopher who has created an eternal world picture, which includes everything that exists. And from that point of view, I can see that Darwin, he has a fragment of the truth, but also the intelligent design theory also have a fragment of the truth. So, but they are very much against each other, but there is some truth in both camps, so to speak. And in Darwin, there are two main factors. It is the mutation and survival of the fittest. That is the motor. That is the driving force in the evolution, and the evolution takes place in small changes. If there is a mutation that gives an advantage in the survival, then this mutation will be transferred to the offspring. But only when the mutation gives an advantage, it will go on. And Martinus thinks, yes, it is true that evolution takes place in small steps. But then the people with the intelligent design theory, they don't think that one species can develop into another species. And they have, the purpose of is to show Darwin wrong. So they have, they use the paleontology, they argue with the fossils and say that there is not enough fossils to show the transition states between the different species. But they also have a lot of arguments from the biochemistry. If you have a motor in a car, and if there is just one error in the car, in the motor, if you take one part out, the whole motor doesn't work, and the motor has been planned and designed. And if you go into a cell, it's even more complicated than the motor in a car. And if you just take one thing out of the cell, then the cell doesn't work anymore. So they think there is some kind of consciousness and plan behind. So they have found some examples from biochemistry and from geology, and they think they have proved Darwin wrong. And then their conclusion is, there must be another cause. There must be an intelligent cause. But they do not explain how this intelligent cause has worked and how the species has been created. But Martinus also think that there is a design in nature, but every creation takes place in different steps. If you create a sculpture or a painting, there is an evolutionary process, and it's an ongoing process. So every creation goes through an evolution, but also every evolution leads to a creation. But if you talk with scientists, they think there is no plan in the evolution. There is no sense in the life. There is no purpose. There is no goal. If you have such ideas, they say that's religion. It's deep religious to think about that. But Martinus has shown the meaning of life and has shown there is a plan in the evolution. And so for Martinus, the most important in the evolution is the evolution of consciousness. In the biology with Darwin, the most important thing is only the evolution of the physical body. But to Martinus, the evolution of the consciousness is most important. But the most intriguing thing is the question, can consciousness exist outside a physical body? And science says consciousness can only exist in a physical body which is living. And when we die, the consciousness fades out and disappears. But there are some research in near-death experience. People who had been clinically dead for a certain period can explain while they were brain dead that they have experienced something. And there are now many proofs that the consciousness survives the death of the physical body. But that's an argument that the natural science can't explain. But Martinus, he explains in his eternal world picture that life existed for eternity. Martinus thinks that human beings are living beings, but planet Earth is also a living being. The solar system is a living being. The galaxy is a living being. Groups of galaxies. The whole universe, the eternal, infinite universe is a living being. But our organs are also individual living beings. The cells are living beings. The molecules are living beings. And it goes on infinity in microcosmos. And in philosophy, they have the big problem of consciousness. How did consciousness come around? Scientists, they're looking for when did the universe start? When did life start? But Martinus thinks there are some phenomena that just simply have an existence. Maybe natural science could accept that the sum of energy is constant, which means that the energy has never started and the energy would never end. The energy is just something that exists. Why does energy exist? There's no explanation, it just exists. Why is the whole universe a living being? There's no explanation because it has been so for eternity. So the solution of the big problem of consciousness is just something that exists. But in Martinus' world picture, a living being have two sides. All living beings have an eternal side. They have an eternal body, and then they have a created body. And for us, the physical body is a created body, and that can go under, and then you can create a new physical body. But we have an eternal body that doesn't go under. And Martinus says the basic factor in evolution is experiences. Every time when you've made an experience, you have developed. Every time when you have trained and practiced, you have created talents. And these talents that you create during your life can be stored in this eternal body, which means that they survive the death of the body. Because in natural science, they start with the egg cell and the sperm cell, and they melt together, and then human beings, they have 23 pairs of chromosomes, 23 from the mother and 23 from the father. And it contains a huge amount of information. And how did that information come around? They say that it has been created by chance, by mutations. And they survive because in the struggle for life, it's the survival of the fittest. If it gives an advantage in the struggle for life, they would survive. But in general, they claim that this huge amount of information has come around by chance. This information has, so to speak, come out of the blue air. But that's not the way you make computers. You have really to collect information and make programs and put them into the computer. Then, during the whole life, we go to school, we learn, we go to work, we get educated, we study. The whole life we collect a lot of information. We train and practice. We can tell others a little bit about our experiences. But in general, according to the one life theory, all this information is lost when we die. So the collected information disappears in the blue air, and we start with a lot of information, it comes out of the blue air. So that's two absurd theories. And Martinus thinks that all the information, all the training and practice that we have collected in one life is stored in this eternal body. And there we have the talents, so to speak, talent kernels. And they have a physical mirror image in form of the chromosomes. So every talent kernel corresponds to a gene. And in that way, there is a meaning with evolution. No single experience is wasted in relation to the evolution, because when you have made an experience, you've trained and practiced, you create talents, and in that way you also create new genes, and then they can be transferred from life to life. What I learn, I cannot pass on to my children. That's also what the science says. But all things that I've created myself, I can pass on to myself in the coming lives. So Martinus is working with the concept of reincarnation. And then he's also, so the biggest factor in the evolution is the consciousness of the individual. And because the individual is learning everything every day, every life, that is the motor in the evolution. But we have a body, for example, we have different organs, and they are working almost like machines. And Martinus says that machines have been invented, but also our organs have been invented. And Martinus is talking about spiritual worlds. And there is one world, he calls it the kingdom of wisdom. And this is the culmination of intelligence. And he thinks that all organs in our body are inventions. And he even thinks that our eye is a kind of camera. Once the camera was a physical invention, but later on it was built into flesh and blood. So Martinus is to some detail describing how the intelligent design is made. And there is also, when these human beings or these living beings in the spiritual planes have got their ideas, they can test the ideas in the physical world. There are inventors and scientists who are receptive, but they can also be put into practice in nature. So Martinus, he gives a very logical explanation to the evolution. But here in my book, Martinus, Darwin and Intelligent Design, there are 25 chapters. And in every chapter, I mention a problem. And then I say, Martinus look upon this problem in this way. Darwin looks upon it in this way, and Intelligent Design looks upon it in this way. But principally, this book is an introduction to Martinus' world picture, to Martinus' cosmology. But I found it was a very interesting way to introduce Martinus, because then you get sort of some perspective. Darwin or the biologists think so and so, and those who like intelligent design theories think so and so, and Martinus thinks so and so. But Martinus' explanations are much more complete, because his cosmology represents the theory of everything. And in that picture, you could say, yes, Darwin is right. The evolution takes place continuously. But the intelligent design theory, yes. The most important thing is that there is a consciousness. They are not saying it directly, but the adherents, those that like the theory, are very often religious people, and they think that there is a divine creator, that God has created. But we have intelligence, planet Earth have intelligence, and there is, when you collect all the intelligence in the universe, a kingdom of wisdom where there is intelligence. And there, the bodies that we are living in, they are designed. So there is also some truth in the intelligent design theory. In natural science, they think we start with physical matter, Big Bang, and then there is hydrogen, and helium, and later on life comes around by chance, and by chance life, consciousness is produced, life, they think the physical matter is the primary and the consciousness is secondary, but Martinus thinks they put it around. Most important is the consciousness, and physical matter is a tool for the consciousness. The consciousness can express itself through the physical matter and can experience through the physical matter. I found this is a nice way to introduce Martinus' world picture. I have studied biochemistry at the Technical University of Denmark, and I've studied biology at the University of Copenhagen. And I've been interested in Martinus cosmology since I was a teenager. I've studied Martinus cosmology for 50 years, and maybe for some 30 years I've given lectures. So that has been my biggest interest the whole life. What is life and how does life work? So this book is a kind of fulfillment of my life contract, because I've tried to build a bridge between natural science and Martinus cosmology. And that has been very inspiring for me to introduce this book. And it has been written originally in Danish, and it has been translated into English. And all in all, it has been translated into 7 other languages. It's also translated into German and Croatian and Spanish, French, Russian and German. And you might find some more information on my webpage. I have a webpage with the address oletherkelsen.info. Thank you for your interest.